Thank you very much, Dr. David. That was very informative and passionate. Excuse me. We'd like to welcome Mr. Baker up to the podium from Recovery House. Matt will tell you a bit more about that. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Neil. Right, on the theme of what's just been discussed, I'd like to just start off by giving a little bit of lived experience. Obviously, I'm also here in a professional capacity, but also in a personal capacity. When I first met these guys, I didn't anticipate it leading to standing here with a microphone in front of me. I was just trying to figure out how to get a day clean. Chosen these photos because these were the photos that I put forward when asked to do a little testimonial for Jericho, which was an absolute privilege. So, that photo, I was the original photo there when I was using. I had to really scour to find it because I was pretty camera shy. That's been mentioned about the social isolation, and there's very, very little documentation of me for a big period of time. Absolutely honoured yesterday that little baby, that's my nephew, he came to visit me in Jericho House, and he called me yesterday. He's older now, and he said, I've never known my dad, but you've always been like a dad to me, so I just wanted to call you and say Happy Father's Day. Looking at that photo, I know I'm on heroin there. I was holding a little baby in my hand whilst an active heroin addict, and it doesn't fill me with pride looking at a photo of myself trying to nurture and be a role model to a little man in my life, and knowing what was going on outside of my life. That was probably within 6 months of me going into Jericho House. When I've done a bit of a personal experience share before, a few. When I was in Jericho, I did one, and I'd got an hour in, and I think I was about 14 years old at this point, so I'm going to spare you that version of the story. As you're all aware, you know what the root of drug addiction's like, so I'll kind of kick in with a few months before I went my journey into there. I tried to do a detox in how I knew how you do a detox, which was go to my friend who owned a pub, live above the pub, took some opiate substitute medication with me, with no money and no car, with a view to taking this substitute medication and drinking my way through 5 days, and the logic being that I would then not be an active heroin addict anymore. I was in a village in the middle of nowhere, and I managed to score twice during that week. So coming home from that was my best plan. That was as much as I could muster in my personal experience of how I was going to try and get myself clean. And I got home, and it was the first time ever that I actually thought, I can't do this by myself. As it's already been discussed earlier today, that just the absolute desperation, but there's an insanity there that I constantly believed that I'd figure it out tomorrow. And it was the first time ever. Kind of tapped into, I didn't know it was recovery, but I started ringing people that I knew that used to use drugs with me and just saying, I need to stop using drugs, do you know how to help me? And I got pointed in the direction of a friend of mine who, I hadn't seen him for 3 years and I had no idea where he was, and that was because he was 3 years clean, and he'd gone off to Jericho House. Not once did I check in and ask what was going on in that guy's life, but I got pointed in his direction, and he pointed me in the direction of Jericho House. I got arrested 3 times from the point of that phone call to actually getting into Jericho. It wasn't going well. I had kind of a lasting memory. But when I was 7, my father took his own life, and one of the things that really kick-started me into really wanting to get motivated to change was I was sitting in my car trying to think of the most pain-free way of killing myself, and I thought I'd found a good one, and it was the best thing that happened to me all day. And something about that experience, whether it was God, whether it was my conscience, interpret it how you like, but a voice that wasn't the one saying you're not worthy and you should kill yourself, another voice in my head kind of went, that story you're telling yourself that everyone will be better off without you, your daughter's 7, you were 7, and you know that story's not true. it was enough of a challenge to my own thinking for me to think, well, I'm going to have a little reach out and see if I can get some help. So that's the shorter version. So I ended up moving into Jericho. It's really nice to hear Neil speaking earlier about some of the personal experiences and the stories of people that have been through, because like one of them's a miracle. It's as has been mentioned as well. It can be like reduced to individuals, and then when you get those individuals and put it in a collective, it's amazing. It's like every individual there is an absolute miracle. And one of the things that was discussed earlier was the boundaries that were set. I remember within my first hour of walking through those doors, getting a hug, and also being told that the thing I just said wasn't appropriate. And we were absolutely right in hindsight. And it like that kind of like not holding it against you. We'll give you a hug. We'll love you better, but also this isn't messing around. It's like I've just explained the seriousness of the problem, and somehow I got an hour into rehab and forgot how serious it was. So graduated from Jericho, listened to the suggestions that were given to me. I moved back to my hometown and didn't do the chasing the money, didn't do the like going straight back into work, which I wouldn't be working where I am today had I done so. The job centre pushed me in the direction of I went and had a job interview in a canteen in a factory. And I came out of there and it like something in my soul died when I walked out, like at the prospect of having to like go back into this line of work and thinking. But at the same time, my wife was starting to send me job opportunities like while she was out working and I was sitting at home. And I like kind of stuck to what these guys had suggested for me to do. Like Recovery House opened. Next slide, please, Dave. There it is. So I moved out, I graduated from Jericho in May 2014, and Recovery House opened in the February 2015. So during that period of time, I was just absolutely smashing meetings, doing loads and loads of meetings, going to like trying to build social networks outside of those meetings, trying to socialise with those people. And it like to the outside looking in, if you didn't know, you might have said that's an adult man who's well capable of working now. But the reality was I was sort of building a foundation for myself based on not just my own thinking, the suggestions that other people had given me that I really respected. And I got a voluntary opportunity, started volunteering in this rehab, not back down that other job because I wanted to carry on volunteering in this rehab. And eventually ended up in a situation where I was offered work there, and then in back end of 2016 was given the manager's job. Which is a quick turnaround, but it wasn't an intensive interview process, I'll be honest, because there wasn't that many people that were going for it. So, that's not because I wowed everybody, but hopefully since then there's been some development that's gone into that, and we've built something that works. Just thought it worth mentioning as well. When I first went into Recovery House for the voluntary meeting that we were having just prior to it opening, it became apparent it was a very different setup. Like what the people were pitching was very, very different, and I was still in the luxurious position where I had these guys around for some support, and I went there, I thought this isn't what rehab is in my head, this isn't how it works. I had a very this is how it's got to be, and it wasn't that. So I got, first thing I did when I got back was called the guys at Jericho, and I think it was Dave I spoke to. And he kind of pointed me in the right direction with it and said, give it a go, mate, give it a go. Like, you've turned up to one voluntary thing for a day and it's not what you think it should be. Like, carry on, give it a bit of your time, invest in it, see how it plays out. And I may not have been standing here today having this conversation with you if I hadn't made that phone call and been given that advice. So, also, something that I just wanted to note on that was Brian, who's sadly no longer with us, lots of you in the room will know him, some of you may not. When I got offered the manager's job, I called Brian, and every bit of me thought he was going to say, what are you talking about? Absolutely not. You are nowhere near ready to be put in that position. And that wasn't the phone call out. I think it was, like, I was thinking earlier, was it the last time I spoke to him? I'm not 100% sure. I may have spoken to him again. But it's a lovely memory to have, that the last conversation I had with a man that I absolutely revered, admired, looked up to, that he actually took the time to empower me into moving forward in my role, and it was probably part of me was looking for an out, because I'd have thought, if Brian tells me it's not all right, I can't do it, and then I haven't got to put myself out there. But yeah, that's not how it went. Right, next slide please, Dave. Right, so just a little bit about what Recovery House is. So yeah, as I said, opened in 2015. We were a 6-bed unit up until 2020, and then we did a bit of building work to convert one of the rooms into a double room, so we've managed to increase it to a capacity of 8. Again, as has already been discussed today, we have the manpower, we have the experience, we believe, to help more people than that, and we're trying to put the wheels in motion to figure out what's the most productive way of doing that in a way that's sustainable and works. But the transition from 6 people to 8 has worked really well. We work, it says up there about the recovery capital model, and as again, it's already been spoken about today, that what do we actually do with the lived experience? How do we actually teach people how to sustain that recovery? And what we do is we're fundamentally a 12-step treatment centre. That's the thing that our team has. Our lived experience is what we're bringing to the table. And then the recovery capital model is we try and make sure that we're doing this sort of stuff, actually interacting with other agencies, interacting with partnership working, making sure that all the services that people haven't been able to access or have been discouraged from accessing or didn't know how to access, that we're trying to bring all of that together and make sure that the first year of my managerial role, I thought I had to learn how to be a debt advisor, and turns out you don't. You just have to know that there's a debt advice service and say, ring Teresa, she'll sort you out. So we can just focus on what we're good at, make sure that we're doing the bit that we're good at, and we can link people into the services. And if we're all pulling that together, what an amazing chance of sustainable recovery you've got. Next slide, please. Don't know why I wrote these, I'm not reading any of this, just for my own anxiety. Recovery House is the residential rehabilitation part of the charity that is Encompass. So within Encompass, we have 2 homeless accommodations, 3 food banks, a day centre that isn't formally open, but it's semi-open, and part of the point of that day centre is to provide a centre to engage with those services. So we do have the debt advice service working out of that centre. We have the local harm reduction service that are working out of that centre, and looking to keep building on that and developing that into a community hub that really benefits everybody, not just the people that are currently in our service. One of the great things about the charity having all this provision as well is within those, one of the chaps that is now a senior support worker manager at the homeless project that's just down the road from the rehab is a former resident. I think one of the other full-time staff is a former resident. There's bank staff that are former residents. There's volunteers that are residents. Part of our aftercare plan, we call it voluntary with the food bank, because you can either come into the house or volunteer at the food bank, and everyone chooses to go and volunteer at the food bank. But the outcome of that is that actually sometimes at the beginning, where people are maybe not always doing it for the right reasons, is it's a little morning out, but what you get as the outcome of that is they're engaging with people from the local church that are also volunteering, positive, forward-focused, like-minded people that are giving them a wider recovery network other than just people with lived experience of active addiction, and plugging into the bits of the community that are really beneficial. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to bore you and explain all of this, but this is the outcome star that we use within the centre. I was very resistant to this when it got pitched to me as an idea, because my initial experience of going into services and being asked how I felt on a scale of 1 to 10 felt wholly arbitrary, and I also felt like at times my answer wasn't correct, and that I'd get it, people would point out to me that actually you told me this earlier, so maybe you're better than next week, or better than you were last week. So the idea of scoring individuals and putting a number on progress, I was a bit resistant to it without actually looking into what it is. It turns out it's actually quite helpful. So the way that this is done is that recovery capital model, we break it down into these 10 areas. It also goes across the charity, so if we've got someone who comes to us from the homeless shelter, we can try and continue the work that they were doing up until that point. And it's clear guidelines in terms, it's not an arbitrary guess. It's not saying how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, because like, what does that question even mean? But like, you'll read out statements and say, do you agree with this statement? That's 1. This one's 2. This one's 3. This one, and you kind of figure out where the line is, where you couldn't quite agree with that statement yet, and then you've got a clear guide of where you need to be and what the next thing is and how you actually work with that. And you'll see, like, notice that some of the bits on there are things that we do directly as a team. We hopefully benefit individuals specifically with the work that we do in a lot of those areas, but then a lot of the work that's also done is through signposting and through facilitating engagement with other agencies. The managing tenancy, managing money, those are things that we have some conversations around within the treatment centre, but what we also do is plug them into accommodation concern or community law and the charities that are around us that have got expertise in that area that can help people to kind of keep moving forward with this. You might also, just in case anyone's thinking, why haven't you got any 10s? Yeah, that was something I thought when I put it up last night. We didn't write how this criteria works, and a lot of the stuff with 10, from the people that wrote this as a model, 10 is basically you don't need any help anymore, which is completely counter what we're trying to get at. So when we're reading out, right, are you just completely capable of maintaining your own addiction on your own without any help whatsoever? 9 is exactly where we want to be. Let's just get to 9 and stick at 9 and maintain it. So we're not actually aiming for 10 to there. Next slide, please, Dave. So just found a please turn over. There's a whole other card of notes for the last one, but I think I covered it anyway. So this is a little graph I just put together of the people that we have invited to our reunion that's coming up in August. Out of those people, this is what those people are doing with their time nowadays. So we've got 20 people volunteering. I mean, some of them cross over where some of them are in the paid roles, but still doing a bit of volunteering also. Within our service, within the food banks, within the homelessness projects, and within some of the other substance support agencies that operate in our local area that started a career pathway within there and doing some voluntary work. So 8 employed addiction support workers, or working in the addictions fields, 8, I believe, I have to keep looking, homelessness support workers, 9 tradesmen. One of those tradesmen has started his own roofing business, and he's started employing other people that come out, because one of the things we've heard is people wanting to go back and use their skill sets in some fields. It's like they're good at their job, but the actual environment isn't actually that safe to be returning back to at times. So it's like they've almost got like a recovery roofing business where everyone in there is all working together and working a programme around it, which from what I'm told isn't how it goes on site all the time. The only reason I put the barber on there was because he kicked off that I called him a tradesman. So I've had to separate him because it was very clear that needed differentiating. And we've also got a former resident has now become a trustee, as a sort of service user representative on the trustee board, and he's able to sort of speak about his experience of going through the service and bring that to the table when trustees are making group board decisions. Next one, please, Dave. So just going to end on few photos. So like the reason I chose this photo is it looks like an outing, was actually a fundraising event where a few of the former residents got together and did a skydive, and we all went over to support them. And I haven't got the latest figures on this, but I think the last time that we worked out how the financial model breaks down, we were on somewhere around 85% of the money that we need to operate was coming through the actual people that come in through the benefit system, which is a shortfall. That was a few years ago now, so I'm sure that might have changed since then. But what it says is if that's all that's there, then it doesn't work. It's not financially viable. So we need to be able to do things like this and be able to interact with society at large and see who's willing to get involved and support us. We were very fortunate to have a meeting with Lloyd's Foundation a few years ago, and we got 3 years of funding, which really helped us get stable and put us in a situation where we're a bit more self-sufficient in terms of the finances. Recently had a meeting with Specsavers, who have chosen us to be their charity for the year that are coming up, and it's so they're going to do an event a month for us and put that money through, and we need that. And do you know that my favourite thing about that? The money probably was the favourite thing actually, but my second favourite thing about that is the reason that they became aware of us is a lady who works there, lives down the street from us, and she said, "Your guys are lovely." Like that's the bit that like really meant something to me. Like when they came in and they had some of the staff spoke to us. When as you can imagine, we set a rehab up in a very small street, and people were not happy about it, and it took a little while to get where us and the neighbours were cool. And now we're in a position where the neighbours are saying, "Your guys," as was just discussed there, like our guys are the ones that are stopping and asking if someone needs a bit of help, and like actually having a conversation with the woman who lives a couple of doors down when they're on their way out, rather than just the like, all right, and on the go. So like what the guys that are in the treatment centre are actually doing in terms of showing that people that are in a rehab aren't just people slumped in a corner with needles hanging out their arms. They're actually like can be well-rounded, responsible, polite, nice people. And that to me, I mean, obviously the money's going to help, but the fact that what we're putting out there is hopefully shifting perspectives a little bit in terms of what addiction is and what recovery is a big deal. Next slide, please. These are a couple of events that we can't do without that money. So we can kind of tick by and do the bare bones, but what we can do when we're able to raise some funds is do some additional bits where like the team building stuff and get people out, which hopefully we'll be able to put a couple of photos forward in terms of the, I forgot what it's called now, photo voice, there we go, right, coming your way. Next slide, please. This is some stuff we did at a local agency. It's a charity called Soul Haven that we do a 12-week course at every 24, so we do 12 on, 12 off. So we go over and they do eco-farming. So like for 1 day a week, the guys go over, they've got a yurt, they do some therapeutic work in the yurt one week, and then the next week they go back and they learn some stuff in the polytunnels and like learning to grow things, and then bring a little bit of that back into our place. And then the first time we did it, we then did a Wim Hof day where we did some sort of meditation, cold water exposure, which is like an absolutely amazing thing to be able to do. That's an example of us trying to just work collaboratively. They do this for free for us. We went and did some promotional stuff for them and made a video for their website for them with our guys there, and that, like that. It like why have the kind of why have 10 lawnmowers analogy is like let's actually kind of share what we've got, and they help us out, we help them out, and we're trying to generate as many relationships like that in the community as we possibly can. Next slide, please. I probably haven't got heaps to say on that. We went and did a walking football day. I think I've just covered a lot of what I was going to talk about there. But yeah, this is another few chaps that are on a walking football team in the local community. have helped us, backed us, and asked that a couple of times a year we go and have a game of walking football. If you haven't tried it, have a go. It's a laugh. It's very hard when someone puts a through ball and you have to have a walking race down the line with them. But interesting day out. And then last slide, please. So this was the reunion that we did last year, like I mentioned earlier. We've just put the wheels in motion to get this year's one. So I think we've got 42 people confirmed that are coming to the one this year. Really hoping for the 100, break the 100 for the first time. But it's an absolutely awesome day, like the reunions days. It was magical last year. Unfortunately, it got rained off. It should look a bit more like the campfire photos that you've seen earlier, but it was a nightmare last year. So we had to call a church that we know and play indoor football in there instead, and do a little meeting rather than the campfire out in nature, which was supposed to be the vibe. So fingers crossed the weather's nice this year. And we will get an opportunity to bring all those people together again and celebrate lived experience and celebrate the knock-on effect that's the Recovery House is having, and then hopefully the bit that I'm bringing to the table of that is the knock-on effect that Jericho House is giving me. Just finished on this. We do a gratitude group at work on a Friday morning, and I was speaking about Jericho in that group, and kind of like individuals and things that people had said to me and talking about it, and one of the residents on his check-in part of the gratitude group said, like, I want to thank the staff at Jericho House, because I can't remember why I'd helped him that morning or something, and probably referenced something that someone had said to me whilst I was sitting in the office in Jericho, and he was like, like that thing that you helped me with, that you said someone helped you with, if they hadn't helped you with that, you wouldn't have been able to help me with that. Which is miraculous, and I'm sure, like when we're talking about the knock-on experience and the trickle-down of the support that's offered, it's like those are the sorts of things where I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to feed that back, because that's a direct expression of gratitude that was put in the direction of Jericho House that you would never have known otherwise. But I'm sure there are conversations like that going on around the country as a result of the work that these guys are doing. And I couldn't be more blessed to have been given the direction that these guys give me to try and carry on doing it to the best of our ability with what we're doing in Northamptonshire. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Matt. That was lovely to hear, mate, and it's great to see the work you're doing. And thank you for your help on the phone, because you helped us as much as we helped you into it when we were doing more things. So thank you very much, mate. It's beautiful to see the work. We'd like to welcome our very own